So let's begin on time. I think it's 3:30 India time, and the time that we had planned to start the session. So once again, welcome all of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining in. Thank you so much for joining in on a Saturday. This is the monthly global webinar of the International Association of Facilitators. And this time we have invited the authors of the book, The Power of Facilitation, to join us live in conversation. So we can have a conversation with them and understand what has been their experience about writing this book together, and also acknowledging their generosity of offering this book as a gift to the community, and also allowing us to contribute to the community by donating whatever kind of contribution comes for their book to the welfare fund of the IAF. So I think it's a beautiful opportunity for all of us as well. So we acknowledge and appreciate the authors and look forward to interacting with them through this session. I hope all of you would have received my email, which contained the PDF of the book, as well as the links to the LinkedIn profiles of the authors. Yeah. Okay, can I see some nods or thumbs up? Okay, all right. So we are going to start with something just to get everybody started. We are going to start by inviting all of you to clicking on this link here, which I've just put in the chat, and going to the website and answering the question. Select an image that brings out the power of facilitation for you. So you can look at the images, select the image which most represents or brings out the power of facilitation for you. I think you'll need to enter your name and maybe also share briefly why you chose that particular image. Let me know if you're able to access the link.
Shalaka.
Okay, great.
It's just taking time. Please wait until there's a prompt to respond after I've selected the picture. It's just taking quite some time.
Yes, I'm just posting the link again for those who have just joined in. Please jump in and click on this link. It'll take you to the website of Climber Cards, and it'll invite you to select an image which reflects or resonates the power of facilitation for you.
Power of facilitation.
Seems to be some delay in the responses, accepting the responses. So the cards are visible. Does it allow you to enter your name and the response?
Nope. It
No,
says
it's
that
not working for any of us, I don't think.
it just opened the card and it says that we need to wait there. There's a prompt to respond. So it seems that you need to activate it or something in your end.
All right.
Well, it's made
Okay.
us think.
Sorry.
It's made us think. The pictures, but even though we can't respond, it's made me think.
Mhm. So what we could probably do is, let me share my screen and we can just have a quick conversation around which card, resonates with, and we can just have a few responses maybe. Anybody who resonates with any of the images that are currently visible? Otherwise, I can go down.
Yeah, Shalaka, if you can go down just by one more row. Yes.
Is that good? Okay.
Yep. I think the card I chose is on, that's row number 4, I believe, and it's the 5th one from the left. The tulips, the colorful tulips, the
This
one
one.
next to the, yes,
This one,
exactly.
okay.
That's the one that
Hmm.
resonates with me when I think about the power of facilitation. It brings a sense of hope and forward looking. And a hope for making the world a better place, in which the flower resembles.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
done.
you for sharing that, Sharon.
Can I go next?
Yes, please. Which card would you like me to
uh,
highlight?
The stones, it's in the first row.
Okay. Okay. This one?
Yeah, the second one from the left. It just seems to me that a lot of facilitation begins with something that appears immensely complex. And when it comes down to it, it just seems to simplify itself. And it appears as though finally when you get to, let's say, the best question you can think of, or the sharpest question you can think of to get something from an audience, in its form, it appears the simplest and smallest, but it's always as though it's like a journey from the biggest stone to the smallest one. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Well, maybe we can have a couple of more responses and then we can move ahead.
Shall I speak? Virginia?
Yes, Virginia, which one is yours?
I chose
Card.
the palette, the paint palette, because it, for me, facilitate. Can you hear me?
This one. This one?
Yes.
Okay.
Facilitation, facilitator helps everyone's voice be heard. And it's for me, it's a palette allowing that to happen and sort of celebrating that every voice is heard.
Thank you. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay.
Shalaka, could you go a little further
anyone
down?
else?
I'd like to share. Further down.
Sure.
Down.
Let me know.
Yeah, just yeah, right there. I chose the one with this grocery bag here. No, a little up, it's gone.
Ah, okay. This one.
I can't see it on my screen yet. Yeah, this, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that one. Yeah, because to me, it's like facilitation is all about, you know, all sorts of ingredients being put together in such a way that, you know, you are satisfying everybody's taste by making several wonderful dishes. And that's what I think facilitation is all about. Everybody's taste, everybody gets something, and it's all
Okay. I think we
wonderful.
lost
And
you for a few seconds there, Sushma.
oh, okay. So I said it's all about cooking a fantastic meal of different dishes, and everybody gets something from all different types of ingredients. So that's
Okay, I
what a
think you're,
facilitator does.
I'm not able to hear you clearly. Maybe you could type in the chat box, Sushma, so that everybody can, you know, understand what you're trying to say. And I can see that there are some responses in the
I wonder whether
Yeah.
I has some internet connection issues. So Shima, we could hear you, or at least I could hear
Yes.
you. Yeah, in
Can
Copenhagen.
I go?
Yeah.
Can I go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes,
maybe
please.
maybe we could ask people to put their thumbs up if they can hear okay, just so we can get a feel for. And I'm sure that. There we go. Yeah. Okay. There's two ways of doing thumbs up. There's the virtual, and then there's the in-person. That's great. Right. Great to see so many people here, by the way.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think I got thrown out.
Are you back? Shall I go? Or yes.
Right. So I think I was not able to hear Sushma, and I know there are some messages in the chat as well. And it's really interesting to look at everything that has come in. Thank you so much, everybody. We probably don't have time to read out everybody's responses, but thank you. And I can just share this link once again for those who have joined in now. And hopefully it will be there, you know, at some point of time, we'll be able to see everybody's responses. So thank you everybody for contributing to this activity. And let's move ahead. So it's like, you know, we want to hear the beginning of the story, right? Like once upon a time, there were 10 authors and they, you know, they wanted to write a book. So let's hear from the authors, maybe in a, like a, you know, a round robin fashion, and a rapid fire in about a minute as to how did you come to be associated with this project? I'm calling it a project and not a book because I'm sure it was much more complex than simply writing a book. And all of us are, you know, really curious to know how each one of you came to be associated with this, and you know, this whole recipe of the authors and the graphic recorders came to being. So I invite any of you to start.
You want to go first, Marlon?
All right. So hello, everybody. Good to see you. It's early morning here in Uruguay, South America. Trevor and I got invited quite early by Kimberly Bain to join this big project, and it has been a fantastic journey over the last couple of years. And I'm actually happy that we took the time that we did from the very start until we had the final product, which was the book and the website connected with it, and so on. Kimberly asked Trevor and me specifically because she wanted facilitators to describe how you can work with whole system change, systematic approaches to change, change and transformation, how you can use internal facilitators, and so on. So that has been our sort of perspective into this project all the time. And I must say that we've actually learned more about change and transformation by being a part of it as well. So I'm sure all of us that has been a part of this can share more about that. So that's the short and sharp version of how we got into the project.
Thank you so much, Malin. And I know Malin is representing herself and Trevor today. So thank you for that. May I invite Stephen to share his story?
Thanks, and good evening, everyone. I've been hearing whisperings from Kimberly for some time. Kimberly was in India in 2015, and I think again in maybe 2016 or 17. And so early 2017, she told us that she had the dream of writing this book. And immediately, Kavi and I sort of said, yep, we're in. We'd really like to be a part of the process. And then it slowly started to build, and then we got the lovely email with everybody else that was involved in the project. There were a few people that joined us initially, but because of things that were going on in their lives, they weren't able to continue and write their chapters, but still it was a really great collection of authors and a great collection of stories.
Thank you, Stephen. Michael, would you like to go next?
Sure. How time flies when you're having fun, but also when you're being challenged. And I think this has been a really interesting global effort, crossing 3, 4, 5 continents. It's been a really good opportunity to get to know a new set of practitioners that I've heard of previously, but I've had the joy of working with. And so how did it all come about? Well, basically, Martin Gilbreth, who couldn't be here today, but sends his regards, the co-author for the chapter that we did together, basically dragged me into this. I think there's no better way of putting it, but I think we were all somewhat better for it. So thank you for inviting us here to share a little bit more about the work that we did.
Thank you, Michael. And Michael and Martin Gilbreth, both of them have co-authored the chapter that they've written, and I think he's talking on behalf of both of them.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Hector, may I invite you to share your story?
I think we cannot underestimate the capability of Kimberly to bring people together. I think, I mean, she's not here, but she was the tour de force to make this happen, because probably you know that facilitating facilitators is the most difficult job in the world, probably, because we're a tough bunch. But she was actually her passion for this work, and she was the one who actually just, hey, she invited each one of us, at least that was my case, and she asked us, hey, would you like to work on this? And at the beginning, I thought that was, well, do I have anything to say, or maybe, I mean, because it's the first time that I participate in this kind of initiative, so it was like, do I really have anything that's worth writing about, or actually, or am I anyone that might, but because my colleagues are far more experienced than I in this, but I would say Kimberly's experience and brought us together, and I think she was very, how do you say it, like a sniper. She knew who could help in each one of the topics, because it's a very broad, if you see every chapter is very specific. So I think that she has that insight and foresight to see who could contribute significantly in each of the chapters. So I think that was something that was critical for the actual book to jump off the ground and actually achieve what it has to achieve at the end of the day. So that was my experience. So she was very specific, and because actually she asked me, can you write about this topic? So I think that was something that I was like, instead of just a very broad option. But so that was my experience, at least.
Thank you so much, Hector, for sharing that. And Kavi, over to you.
Yeah, Stephen shared part of the story. My story is very similar to Stephen. We got invited, and it's slightly different from Hector's because we were not quite sure about what we were going to write about. We just had a possible area to explore given what we were kind of doing, but we didn't have a pinpointed view of it all when we started out. And the experience of putting it together helped us explore our own biases, what we are and how we explain things, and to work with different time zones, different people and cultures, just exposed us to our own biases, our own ways of thinking, ways of working. And it, as much as I would like to tell you that it was smooth and everything was perfect, it was far from it. It had various levels of challenge in it, some of which we will share today, but only some. But the whole experience left us better, far better than what we've started out with. And that is, I think, the most important element of it all. The last point that I want to talk about is, for any craft, you get better by explaining what the craft is about. So this is an attempt to, just get better by just trying to explain what is just one aspect of the craft. That's what we attempted to do. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm really looking forward to talking to all people from all fellow travelers and co-facilitators from around the world. Thank you for the opportunity, Shalaka, and all of you at the Global IAF board. Thank you.
Thank you, Kavi, for sharing your story and also some of the pains and learnings that you must have gone through. And I think we should be able to understand those a little better going ahead. I'm not sure how many of you have actually got the opportunity to read through the book, and especially the 4 chapters whose authors are being represented here today. But what we are going to do is we are going to invite each of the authors to quickly share about the essence of their chapter in terms of the experiences that they are sharing and the key messages that they would want to bring out through that chapter. And what I have also done is I have uploaded the graphic recording which is there in the book at the end of each chapter, and that is also something unique about this book. It's not just a book, it is also a visual representation of the entire chapter in just one visual, which is again another very powerful approach of understanding so many different learnings and messages and things like that. So I think that's again another unique thing about this book. And we were looking forward to Chitra Chandrasekhar, who was one of the graphic recorders for Kavi.
She's joining.
She's
okay.
trying to join.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And I think for one more chapter, she has done the graphic recording, right? For Hector's? Was that Hector?
No.
Actually, she did the graphic for us, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, super. Yeah, so hopefully she should be able to join us soon and we can hear from her as well about her experience. So the graphic recording for each of the 4 chapters, I have uploaded it in the chat box. So you can refer to it while the authors are maybe talking about their chapter. Yeah, and so that will help you kind of, correlate to what they are speaking about. This is, we have to be super efficient about time because we want to give a lot of more opportunity for people also to interact, with the authors, etc. So may I request each of the authors to share about their chapters in brief, let's say maybe 3 minutes, three minutes each. Yeah, and I can probably, for Stephen and Kavi, make an exception and make it 5 minutes because there are 2 of them. Okay, so yeah, so anybody can start. Yeah,
Well,
okay, that's a great question. That's a great suggestion, Anastasia. So Malin, would you like to start?
I can start because I think our chapter is the first one of those of us
Chapter
who
two,
are
yeah,
here.
we can go in that sequence.
Yeah, and I love the graphical work in this book, so I take every opportunity to share. And this is the fantastic artwork of Rosanna, who worked with us in the chapter. And I must say, it was much more than just doing the graphics. It was actually having a dialogue about change and transformation with Rosanna as well. So I would say that she has done more than just being a visual summary by Rosanna in our chapter. So I feel like the three of us has actually worked on this one. So what is this chapter about? I love this quote about change. It says, in organizations that has come to see stability, certainty, and predictability as normal, and change as something that needs to be controlled and managed, complexity creates a lot of anxiety. And the fact is, though, that organizations and culture, like water, become stagnant and unhealthy without continuous movement and change. And in the areas that Trevor and I work, it is very much about helping rather big organizations to facilitate change, usually with a lot of internal facilitators involved. So why did we write this chapter? For us, it was important to convey to the IAF community and to facilitators the thinking that we have about a bit bigger scale facilitation, that you don't always have to do the facilitation yourself, even if you're a really good facilitator. Your competence and skills can very much be used by internal facilitator doing the facilitation itself. So that was kind of the core message why we put together this chapter. And the insights that you will find when you read, if you have not already, this chapter is around scaling. That scaling is key when we want to really make a big change in an organization, and we need to engage in all systems, the macro, the big system, the in-between systems, as well as in the micro systems with different groups. And you will also see examples of how we worked with, or always do in our kind of work, by building internal communities of facilitators, and how you can work over long time and in partnership with them. And the role that we usually take when we facilitate big systems is that we provide with tools and processes and practice grounds for internal facilitators so that they can do the job. That is usually our key learnings when we really want to see change happen in organizations. And the final core message that you will find in the book or in the chapter as well, and I think this goes for all chapters actually, is that there are no quick fixes. So we very rarely run one workshop and that's it. It's usually like a series of events and interventions over years in the clients that we work with, until they actually see that they have made the change and the transformations that they want. So these are 4 core messages that you will find in the book. And this is the lovely summary by Rosanna. So we're going to talk more about this later on, Shalaka, right? So this is just like a cliffhanger until the discussions that we're going to have later on. So
Absolutely.
very briefly, this is the book that's from the chapter Trevor and I wrote.
Super. Thank you so much, Malin, for giving that bird's eye view of the chapter and the key messages that you wanted to bring out to the community. I think if we go by the sequence in the book, it's chapter 5 by Hector that comes next. Hector, do you have a presentation, or would you like me to share the?
Let's share. I do have just basically the
visual
graphic summary. Yeah. So one of the things, because actually Kimberly approached me and said, let's talk. I would like you to talk about team development and teamwork, and I'd say, okay. So it seems like a very easy link to do facilitation and teamwork, but the thing is, as a facilitator, you're not part of the team. So okay, so how do I do this?
Excuse me, would you like me to share the screen, Hector?
Oh, I'm yeah, basically doing. Let me
okay.
just do that. Sorry, my bad. So, oh, sorry, it's not working yet. Can you help me out? they're having some trouble here on my screen.
Okay, let me share it for you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I came to be is to realize when I was researching, because I did some research on team development and facilitation, and it was I just came to the realization that teams evolve across time. They're groups and they became teams after a lot of work and a lot of interaction and all of that. And I realized that facilitators, we work as accelerators of this process because we actually have to create high performing teams in a very short period of time to get results. And it's not that we're changing them permanently, although we could, as Malin was saying, when you're working in a long-term project, you actually have to transform whole companies into great teams in order to have transformative results and permanent results over time. So I realized that I went back to the basics. I went back to the norming forming norming storming model that you all know and we've seen through ages ago. But I realized that that happens every time we meet with a new group, and that I think that was the key aha moment for me in order to understand. It's like, okay, so you have to make sure every time we do an icebreaker when we start a group, when we start an engagement, is not that we aim to just make them feel at ease. We want to transform that group into a team, at least for the period of time that you're facilitating them, in order for them to open up, to trust one another, to share, to listen, and to actually engage and make some sort of decision or an action plan or whatever you aim for that. So I came to realize that we as facilitators, even though we're not hired to create teams, we need them to become teams in order to achieve the goal that we aim for. So I came to this discussion in the book, in the chapter to, okay, we have to focus on creating that environment, and that's something that we as facilitators, we do that all the time. Create an environment, a safe environment where everybody can participate. But we have to think about that also in the long term. And some of us even do that beforehand. All of us engage with our clients before in order to understand the group. At least that's something that I do, is that going blind into a new setting, into new engagement, it's a no-no for me. You have to understand the power dynamics, what's happening behind the scenes before you get into an engagement. So you have to understand where the team is in terms of this maturity model, in order to understand where you can help the group better. So the work was done by Debbie Roberts. She did a wonderful job putting it all together and putting all the process of how the team development can be impacted by facilitation. So basically, we can accelerate teams or groups into teams, and well, I don't know if that summarizes everything, but it's. I think it helps to just gives a little sight of what the chapter is all about.
Thank you, Hector. Thank you so much. I love the way you've connected your chapter with the previous Malin's chapter about change management, transformation, and also the way you've connected facilitation with the age-old concept of teams, and how facilitators can help groups to become teams, and not just teams, but a high-performing team. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to stop sharing this graphic now. Okay. And I think the next chapter is chapter 6, that is Power of Partnership Between Facilitation and Communication by Michael and Martin. So how would you like to go
Sure.
about this?
I'll just
Yeah.
quickly. So hi everybody, I'm Michael Ambion, and here we have a graphic actually from another of the fantastic illustrators that worked on this, or Rosanna. But let's jump straight through to basically talking about the chapter around partnership between communication and facilitation. So really, we're beginning to weave a nice thread here, right? So we talked about Marlin's and Trevor's observation around change and how there's a desire to control it. We heard from Hector how it links into basically people and the HR function as well, and so on. And then now we're doing another tour into basically the element around communication more broadly, in addition to the communication that might happen in a facilitated, say, workshop and so on. We have a nice graphic here. We'll come back to that, of course, from Chitra. And with the time available, I'm just going to give you a very brief canter through this, and of course encourage you to also follow Martin, who couldn't be here today, but he has a very active presence on Twitter and LinkedIn and whatever else. So make sure that you show your love there. And also, I think it's maybe timely that just quickly mention that 4,735 downloads of the book have taken place so far. And if you haven't already shared it with their friends, then be sure to send them the factpower.org link.
Oh, okay. So would one of you be kind enough?
A range of conversations with conversations with the practitioners from around the world. We have a couple of us here who basically a Finnish actually facilitator, Ginger, American communicator in a hybrid setting from Germany, Ron, also from the US, and then really there's a crossover between the two basic professions.
I think your voice is breaking a bit. Sorry to interrupt you, but I think your voice is breaking a bit.
Okay, is that any better now?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, and if it doesn't help, then.
Okay, well, let's try and see how we go. So one thing that that basically communicators and facilitators have in common is that they really want to basically engage people, but in often very different ways. We borrowed a little ladder here. We had to break it out to make it fit the screen, but it's basically the engagement ladder that you might have come across from the Canadian Institute of Cultural Affairs, or the Institute of Cultural Affairs. And there's basically an element around receiving information, providing input, and then finally full responsibility for planning and action. And it turns out that these two often come at challenges from two opposite ends. And that led to an interesting discussions around how these two professions could work better together. And the chapter is full of examples where you can find more about that. In a quick sort of summary here, you can basically see there is an intersect between the two, which is that both professions obviously want to be responsible, ethical, professional, and basically a model servant leadership. But often a facilitator is responsible for the process and neutral to the content, whereas on the communication side, often you're not necessarily neutral to the content. So to quickly wrap up here, what we found was that when you get those two intersects together, it is incredibly rewarding. It is also quite challenging, and it's definitely intriguing because they're very different ways of looking at the world. And then really, in order to scale up the shared experience, essential that we continue to share our insights, our learning, and also the practical strategies, right? And those you can find, of course, in this chapter, but actually also, of course, in all the other chapters in the book, because they all intersect in one way or another. And that ultimately enables us all to scale up engagement and dialogue for positive social change. And there's a question here quickly from Anastasia. What kind of type of partnership? We're talking about the partnership of two professions, the profession of communication, or communication professionals, and then facilitation professionals. So full disclosure, I'm a past chair of the International Association of Business Communicators. So that's the perspective I brought to the table. And then we have a couple of past chairs of IAF involved in this process, on this book, of course, as well. Trevor is one of them. And of course, Martin Gilbraith is also a past chair of IAF. I hope that answers your question, Anastasia. And so really to wrap up, we'll come back to the whole articulation here, but also a good opportunity to quickly say thank you again to Chitra for a fantastic way of trying to basically pull together some of the key themes of the chapter in a beautiful graphic. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael, so much for bringing in the cross-section of different fields of work and communication and facilitation, and also opportunities for collaboration, I think, between international organizations which hold these different professions together. Thank you so much for that perspective. And now we move to chapter 8, Living a Facilitative Life by Stephen and Kavi. And I think Kavi, you would speak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the 2 minutes extra that you gave us. Hopefully we'll not take that. We'll try and keep it to time. So some context for you as to when we started getting writing with this. We were actually doing a lot of workshops in the scope, in the field of building bridges, breaking walls, one story at a time, which was essentially that if you bring different sets of people together and held a space for people to explore and have meaningful conversations, walls that existed between them break. So we were doing all of this work. We're doing this work in communities, in organizations and all of that. And that's the space in which we got into whilst writing this book. So this context is important for you to for us to explain, so that it'll give you more context to understanding where we're coming from. At the same time, our experiences with the facilitation, the world of professional facilitation, was, and in more ways than one is as well, that it's been more veering towards defined ways of working, processes, methods, and everything else, which is getting very categorized. And so here was an invitation for us to think beyond all of this. We thought, and we still believe, and it's our earnest belief, that facilitation, the facilitative bone, exists in every human being. That's the center, that's the centerpiece of our work. And so with this as the premise, if this is the hypothesis, so to speak, we went venturing, trying to figure out what's the case, what does history point to. And there is a space in the book where we also mentioned that we could be biased, there could be confirmation bias, because we're facilitators, we're trying, wherever we are looking, we're seeing this as facilitation. We also state that in the book, but we went after anthropology, we went after Indian history, future studies, Australian history, African history, European history. So we left no book unturned as far as history goes about how did groups evolve and how did group decision-making evolve through facilitative methods. After doing that, we went about doing a bunch of interviews to come up with basically 3 simple, important things that are necessary, we think, for bringing alive the facilitator in people. So that's the entire thesis. It just talks about just showing up, and we call 2 other things as meta knowing and lattice sensing. It's just about having presence, and how can it therefore help groups move forward purposefully. So it's full of short interviews, real stories that we went and ventured and had conversations with ordinary people who have no basis as a facilitator, but we had ordinary conversations and extracted facilitative elements from daily life to illustrate the core hypothesis that we had, that the facilitative bone exists in all of us. And I'll just read a small passage from our book, which is the purpose passage, and I'll stop and hand it over to Stephen. Our purpose is clear: We want to explore whether there are ways of enthusing a casual bystander to believe in the power of facilitation. We'd love to move conversation in the facilitator community beyond tools and practice. We believe that to infuse more life than there is into a discipline, you need to broaden the conversation. That is our North Star. That's the book. That's what we tried getting at it at, and Chitra helped us. Chitra was an active co-creator in this journey. I'm going to invite Stephen to give your perspectives on this, please. You're on mute, Stephen.
Sorry. So I'm just showing the graphic recording that Chitra has done. And one of the things that we did, as Kavi said, we interviewed people who weren't actually facilitators, because our hypothesis was that the facilitator is within us. And we did a large range of interviews, and that was really fun. And pulling together those stories and the process of realization that we had between the two of us, as it really started to emerge, this whole facilitative bone that was within our storytellers. And they were coming from all walks of life. And that was the fun part of it. And I think also what I really enjoyed was the toing and froing that Kavi and I had when we were writing, and we'd do a draft and we'd sit together and we'd play with words, and how it was just lovely to watch that evolution of the chapter from the first version to, I think, the 9th version that we finally had, but just witnessing that evolution and being a part of that as our ideas became clearer as we finished our interviews, as we'd done all of our research. It was really a joyful experience to have been part of writing a chapter like this. And so, yes, as Kavi said, this is the graphic recording that Chitra did, that brought together the various themes that we drew out of those conversations. And the key underpinning at the bottom is that the facilitative bone is within each and every one of us.
One of the things that we learned was that we constantly overestimate our capabilities, like how I overestimated that we perhaps could compress it in 3 minutes right now. So sorry about that.
Thank you, Kavi and Stephen. And it was so interesting to look at the thread, the common thread that was weaving through each of the chapters. You know, with Malin starting from bringing facilitation to organizations, different levels in the organizations, the micro, the meso, the meta, then Hector taking it to teams to build high-performing teams, then to Michael to bringing it to specific professions, and how facilitation can be used together with different professions, and to Kavi and Stephen taking it to the society at large. So I think it's a beautiful connection that we are able to see here. And welcome, Chitra. We missed you for the initial part, and but at least you were able to join in, and we are now able to hear you. I would like to invite you to share your experience about being a part of this project. How did you come to be associated with it? How did it go through? I mean, for you, of course, the question is a little different, because what I did was invite each of the authors to share a bit about the experience of writing the chapter and the key essence and the messages that they want to bring out from the chapter. So how has been your experience? How did you come to be associated? We would briefly like to hear from you.
Okay, thank you, Shalaka. There's been some tech hitch because of a glitch, because of which I couldn't join, and I kept waiting for the link to open. Sorry again, but I think the fun thing for me was anything that happens in the space of collaboration always excites me. because there's always the opportunity to throw the ball around and let the idea grow. And when this idea came about that, and I will always credit Rohit Shenoy from the NCR IAF chapter, whom I got to meet in the year of 2018, mid of 2018, and that was also incidentally the time when I wanted to explore and learn more about the process of facilitation, because I had always seen the process play out as a graphic recorder, as a graphic facilitator, without really being too intensely involved in the process design, but I was more like a fly on the wall, listening and seeing the process evolve. So I wanted to learn what happens inside the process, such that these two processes that are seen as complementary can be integrated in a better way. So that's how my exploration brought me in touch with IAF NCR. It was just the year that they were starting out and having their outreach activities, 2018. I think end of the year around October, Rohit told me about Kimberly's search for illustrators and graphic recorders, and I found it a bit difficult to comprehend, because illustration is a very different process than graphic recording. So for me, it was all the more like it was an experiment, and I was willing to kind of go through the flow, provided I get it. So I didn't hear back, and I said, okay, I also forgot. About December 2018 is when Kimberly wrote back saying, we'd like you to join. And that was really exciting. Go through this process of people connecting remotely even before this whole pandemic even started. And I was always open to that form of engagement, that you can be still connected even if you are in different time zones. So the process itself was a revelation for me. It was a learning journey, that you read somebody's text and you pretty much switch your hats. So between a illustrator and a graphic recorder, I had to switch the two hats. I remember clearly Stephen and I having this conversation when the book when their gesture,
Your voice is breaking, Chitra.
drawings and and the reality was around the time I was also busy with a couple of
Chitra,
other
if
projects,
you
and I
could
wasn't
hear me,
who
your voice
had
is breaking.
actually, so the interaction.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Okay, great. Chitra, are you still there? I can see the... Are you there, Chitra? Can you hear us? Okay, I think she's dropped off. Hopefully she'll be able to join us again. There she is. Your voice was breaking up badly, Chitra, so we were not able to hear you much.
Sorry, am I out? I think I just snapped out and came in. Okay. Sorry, I'll have to switch off my video if I'm still audible. So so I think the process was one of trying to flow and adjust and adapt to this context of merging of the process and the product, which is the book itself. And what you see as an outcome is a fusion process, which I've written about in the blog, which you can read about in the website factpower.org. Yeah, I think that's what I would like to sum up, that it's been it's been a learning journey throughout to understand how communication and facilitation go hand in hand, which is I can't just describe how apt these two processes have landed in my direction, because I do stand for both. One is that I'm more of a generalist, so I do believe that something so specialized is also in reach for every ordinary person, every person here in the community. And the other is that, yeah, when we partner together, there's more that can be achieved. So yeah, and how do you keep that ego out, and how do you keep your own structure that, oh, I come from XYZ profession, so how can I get into that? How can I step into that? So thinking out of those based boundaries we have imagined, really created for ourselves, and focusing more on the human element, which is we need to converse together and solve together. And yes, there will be somebody who is more of an expert at something, and somebody who may be a complete novice, and still how can people still through this whole journey? And I'm still learning.
Thank you, Chitra. Is it okay if if I request you to continue at a later point of time?
One coming through from Srinath, and this is there was you alluded to, and I think there was a reference in Philippe's talk.
I'm sorry. Is there a question that is coming up?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so we are going to have that space a little later. So please hold on to your horses. I know everybody's curiosity is really triggered. There must be a lot of questions going on in your mind, and especially about the visual recording, whether it is an art or a science. Can anybody do it? I'm sure there are so many questions that are going on in our mind. So we have a little another experiment that we are I'm going to do today. It is called using the wheel of names, and I'm just going to share my screen. Give me a moment. I have sent the link to that already to all the authors, and what I'm going to invite them to do is to is to actually spin the wheel, and I'm going to share my screen so that all of us can look at. Okay, are you able to see this wheel?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, can I invite again? We can go chapter wise. So maybe Malin to spin the wheel first, and wherever the the pointer stops, that is the question that you can respond, say maybe in about a couple of minutes.
Okay, so I just click here on my screen. It's going to be very loud music, but let's hope it stops.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So I think you need to share the screen, Malin.
All right, or I could just read out well, I can do that, of course. Just give me a second. This, yeah, this is the question that you see that came up. What impact did the pandemic have on the outcome of the book? All right.
Great question.
So that was the question. Well, I think in a way it helped us to collaborate even more intense, because we are from all over the world, really, all over the globe. And when it became so natural anyway to work virtually, then we could just continue to do that to finish the book. And also, I mean, in the beginning of the pandemic, we actually had some more time. So we had actually some more time to focus on writing the chapters and proofreading each other's and so on. So I would say that in that way, it gave us more headroom to actually work on it as a project.
Thank you, Malin, for answering that question in a clear and a crisp manner. Okay, so I think let's go to Hector. Hector, would you be able to share your screen and then click on the wheel so that
coming up. Okay, so how did the group adapt to working together across geographical, cultural, language, and time differences? Oh, that's a very interesting question. Well, the thing is, we had to work in batches sometimes, because sometimes some could connect at sometimes and some not. Because as right now for Malin and myself, it's very early in the morning. For Stephen and Kavi, it's comfortable in the evening. But the thing is, for example, for Rosanna, I think it's 4 a.m. for her. I think in near Vancouver. So sometimes we had to do this adaptations at times. So I think that the time was more. I think that the time was the biggest issue, more than the cultural language, I'd say, because I think that we talk. I would say that we talk facilitation language, even if it's a so that created a core connection and way of interacting with one another. As being part of the IAF and the core competencies and all that, I think that was the guiding language in many ways, but everybody was able to brought something to the table differently as well. So I think that was the main thing was the timing, the time zones. Sometimes it was brutal to be able to connect with one another. But and the thing is, I think that was the main thing. I think I would like to ask this question to my fellow colleagues, because I would like, if I may, to ask Michael, Stephen, Kavi, and Marlon, and Chicha's like, okay, do you felt any like strong cultural differences when we were doing this work? I'm really curious about that one.
And pitching a short answer there, I think of IAF believe in the basic ethos, and then there's a shared culture there already, and that basically makes things quicker and easier. There's a familiarity and so on. So I think that's is an overlap that's worth digging into.
Kavi or Stephen, if you would like to chime in.
Yeah, I struggling to find or come up with any thoughts around any cultural differences that we experienced. It was definitely challenging with respect to the time zones, but we managed it. As you said, we did it in shifts, and we used a lot of different ways of deciding when we would meet, etc. Basecamp was our go-to for all communications throughout the project, and I'm not sure if we get a chance to talk about that, but that was really useful on various aspects. But from a cultural perspective, differences, no, I don't think so that I experienced that.
So I think, thank you so much, Hector, for sharing that and also inviting others, because that also is an indication of the culture. And I love, I had heard of love has a universal language. I also understood that facilitation has a universal language with the added, interesting ingredient of graphics as well. So thank you for responding to that question. May I invite Michael now to share his screen and spin the wheel?
Sure, let me give that a go. So very exciting here. Let's see if we can get this piece of technology to work. So bringing it up, here's the wheel. Everybody can see it. What could possibly go wrong? Alrighty. Alrighty, so how did the group?
It's the same one. Yeah. Could you spin it again?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You could remove. Sure. You could remove that question, maybe.
Oh, that's probably too late now. But
okay, no worries.
you planning to write more books? Yes, I think so. I think it was a really good exercise. I think early on, somebody mentioned that as a practitioner in a field, you only really get better if you actually try and explain to somebody else. I'm probably misquoting terribly here. Was it you, Stephen, by any chance? And I think, yeah, absolutely. Yes,
Kavi.
affirmative, yes. Okay, sorry. I knew it was one of you two. There you go.
Wow.
So,
Okay, all right. Any
and
thoughts around which book,
could I
what
maybe
it is about?
that's probably still to be seen, but I think what I could probably shamelessly say is that I have previously published an article which is actually around writing about facilitation. So if anybody's beginning to think sitting here in this webinar today that they would like to dip their toe in the water, I could share the link to that basically short guidance. It's a little how-to guide, which is about writing about facilitation in ways that help others. So I'll put that there for you on the chat, because I would also love to read much more around facilitation from others. It's a field, the shelf in the library is not wide enough just yet, I don't think.
Super.
So no pressure,
Thank you so
Marlon,
much.
no pressure, Hector, Stephen, and everybody, Kavi, Chitra.
Yes. So, Stephen, Kavi, I'm not sure. Kavi seems to be coming in and out of the session. I hope you're inside, Kavi, now.
Yes, I'm back.
Okay. And do you have the, I'll just share the link right away.
Stephen does spinning much better. Stephen.
Well, yeah, you'll need to share your screen as well. Stephen?
Yeah, just doing. I think I did it without the music. So you'll get it without the music.
Oh, I think it's coming to the same question again. Yeah.
The universe wants to
Okay.
ask you something, actually.
Yeah. Could you remove it? Oops.
What were some of the significant incidents that shaped the outcome of the book? That's a great question. We were meeting online regularly from the beginning, but one moment that I remember was we were at the Osaka IAF Asia conference, and there was Hector, Kimberly, Marlon, Trevor, and Kavi. Who else was there? Hector and Kavi. I can't quite remember. But that for me was a real moment that I really remember, because the momentum had been growing as we'd got to that. But that was a real clincher. It was a really powerful conversation, a great sense that we were heading in the right direction. And we had many conversations after that, but that was the one moment that I really remember that really helped us consolidate. And there was another moment, and that was when we were talking and we discussed, we felt something was missing, and the thing that was missing was the graphic facilitators and the graphic recorders. And so then we had the collective decision and said, well, how did we miss that? And it might have been there in Osaka. It could have been. It might have been a little bit earlier. But I found that they were two significant moments and conversations that we had throughout the process that I can remember.
Super. Thank you so much, Stephen.
Kavi, you want me to spin for you?
You sure? As always.
Yeah. So done.
Okay.
We've done that, haven't we?
Yep.
Could you remove this question? Okay.
There you go, Kavi. What did you find empowering?
Okay, so may I request you to get off screen sharing, Stephen? Thank you. Yeah, what did we find? What did I find empowering? What did we find empowering? Two or three things. One of the first important element that I discovered was that anybody can write, but it takes skill to edit. So one of the things that this book, I mean, it's not just if you're looking at the authors, you're just not looking at people who wrote. It was mandatory that we edited each other's chapter. So which meant just going through each other's chapter and saying, no, this is not working for me for this reason. That meant reading 8, 9 other chapters, going through it line by line, and reading other people's comments about your work. At first was very difficult to digest, but then you understood their point of view, and it automatically meant permission that each was giving the other to talk honestly about what was coming forth from the other in order for a collective output to be very, very uplifting. So that was very, very empowering. The creative facilitators, the graphic recorders, when they were rendering our work in pictures, that created a different picture of what we had conceptualized vis-a-vis what was emerging. And that again gave us a different picture, but it was always in intense conversation. So both these were very important. The other aspect that I would like to touch upon briefly is this book did not happen in 2 months. It happened over 2 years, and which meant there were life that was happening as the book was coming alive as well. People who signed on to the project dropped off because of other exigencies. People who signed on with a lot of enthusiasm in the beginning found enthusiasm waning towards the end. There were births, there were deaths in families. There's so many things. Life was happening as the book was getting created. That I think was very important. So this is not like an artificial process which was so magnificently created it was filled with human elements of anger, disappointment, joy, happiness, frustration. All of it was part of creation of this book, and we are left with all of those emotions even as we hold the book in our hands. So hold the book on the digital media as we see it. But what gives us joy is the empowering feeling that we gave it to the community, for the community to grow. So those are pieces that stay with me about empowerment, what it did to us, what it did to the creators, and hopefully what it would do to a larger mass of people. Thank you. I think I'm over on that.
Thank you so much, Kavi. I think we have heard from the authors, and Chitra had curated a question specially for you, and it says, I don't want to take a chance on you spinning the wheel unless, else we miss the question about graphic recording. So the question is, how was the process of graphic recording weaved into the fabric of the book?
I think, oops.
Yeah,
I'll just go on non-video mode. All right. The process really was interesting because it started with one of us taking the lead, like Rosanna and Kylan. They kind of stepped up and they tried to understand the requirements, weave them, like collate them, and then understand how each of our different visual languages can be woven in together without disrupting the whole message itself of the book, without having those visuals jarring at you saying, oh, each one of them is so different, which was often looked at as a big risk in terms of how is the book going to look if there are going to be different people drawing in. So earlier on it was made very easy and clear that let's all work towards one end goal, and let's try to adapt our styles to the in a way that it synchronizes so that it doesn't look, it allows for our diversity to be expressed. At the same time, it kind of sits in with the, harmoniously sits in with the larger composition of the book itself. So that was a very crucial role of leadership played earlier on by Rosanna and Kylan. And soon what followed was that the work then was also streamlined and divided between the 4 illustrators who were there. The biggest difference here was, for me it was a big learning, is we were told by the authors that we don't want you to come in as regular illustrators. We want you to think about responding to the text as graphic recorders. And that kind of made me think twice, what does that mean? Because as an illustrator, I come in with a set of predefined notions that, okay, I'm going to read through the text and I'm going to look at different options and I'm going to probably go through multiple iterations. Whereas as a graphic recorder, the facilitators who onboard us in professional roles, they kind of trust our visual translation. And barring a few dialogues that say that probably you should look at this side or that side, there is no real feedback loop as such in a graphic recording setting, where the graphic recorder, yes, checks in with the facilitator from time to time, but the output that comes out is accepted for what it is. So that sense of acceptance is kind of not there in a traditional illustration process. So that was a big difference and a big change for us. The second thing is that, yes, we were also mindful of the fact that this is going to be a book that is going to be read by people who are either who are already championing the cause of facilitation in their settings, whether it is official or academic or non-government or non-profit. But one also understood that we are, as a population in general, the way our education and our workplaces are structured are more conducive to accepting text more than the visual. So the visual language, if it isn't presented in a certain way, will not kind of be accepted. Because one in a book illustration context, one is expecting neat drawings and clean drawings, whereas in the real process of graphic recording, things can get really messy because we're capturing things in the moment. You'll have scrappy looking lines and disfigured figures, but the rush is to capture as much as possible in the time that's available. So the fusion process that emerged in this book, in presenting visuals for this book, was a little bit of that intuitiveness, a little bit of that illustrators had in understanding who the audience or the readers are going to be, and also refining it to a point that it's easy to understand the message in one glance without making it too abstract, without making it look too fuzzy and too encrypted, something that's very direct as a visual. Choosing those kind of metaphors became very crucial. So I would say this was a very kind of a mixed hybrid process where we had to play both the roles as a graphic recorder and as an illustrator in a mass-produced book or in a mass-communicated book. So I think that was the real difference there.
Super. Thank you so much, Chitra. And I hope all of you enjoyed spinning the wheel and answering the questions that came up serendipitously for you. Let's get into more, smaller and more intimate conversations through breakout rooms. And I'm sure each one of you would like to have a deeper conversation with the authors. We will be creating breakout rooms for about 10 minutes, and it will be a random assignment. And you will have one of the authors join your room. And I have already shared the visuals, the visual recording of each chapter. You can refer to it in case you want to ask any specific question around the content or the experience or the process of writing the book. And the authors will be there with you to have this conversation with you all. So everybody ready to join the breakout rooms? Okay, so thank you, Sharon, for joining in. Hope to see you soon again. Okay, I'm opening the rooms now.
And we were just getting started.
Always the way, always the way.
Doesn't that happen to you guys in your sessions? Always people complain that there's not enough time in the breakouts?
Always.
Yes. Always, always.
That said, if you will ever say there's too much time, then you've gone over, right? So there you go. But that never happens. There you go. I'm just going to shamelessly put in a couple of links here for Fact Power. First one is LinkedIn, and then on the Twitters, if you use that bizarre place, which is obviously always full of interesting and weird things. And then last but not least, if you're on Goodreads, add the book to your bookshelf, and then share your review.
We would love that.
Marlin prefers 5-star reviews, and I have to admit, I'm with Marlin on that one. But we're a little bit biased, right? Is that right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And maybe, one of the groups really wants to complete some conversation that got cut midway. Maybe everybody can listen to it, because the next 10 minutes we can have an open conversation. So any particular question that needs to be answered, by everybody, please feel free to ask. I'm inviting, the participants to ask any questions, or even, like I said, close any conversation that was left halfway in the breakout room, and you're feeling called to kind of complete it.
May I speak?
You have the next 10 minutes.
May I speak about that?
Sure,
So
please,
I'm
go
Virginia
ahead.
Swain from the United States. I was speaking about how important it is to have a model of international collaboration. I'm a consultant at the United Nations for 30 years on leadership development, and I'm aware that we didn't have that during COVID as much as I had hoped that people would collaborate. And I brought it up and in the meeting in our small group, and it was said that everyone had their issues, of course, but there's very, very few models to work through those issues. You see, that's what I was noting this morning. It's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning now for me, but I just want to thank you all so much for the model of cooperation, of working through the issues that you have. Hector was very articulate about that, but I wanted to say we need those models of international collaboration so much now to deal with the issues of the world.
Virginia's voice is breaking up, at least for me. I'm not sure.
It sounds good over here.
Same for everybody.
It's good here. It's good here.
It's good here.
Thank
Continue,
you,
Virginia.
Yeah,
so
it's good
I'm
here.
just saying that it's such a joy for me to be with you all this morning, to listen to you and share your actual lived model of international collaboration that you did through the book. I desperately need those models to build on my dream. I have that same dream of us all working together in a collaborative way. It's such a joy to be with you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. And I hope your dream is fulfilled very, very soon. And IAF is one of the means of doing that. Thank you so much.
I'm a relatively new member, so I have to listen a lot and to hear you all.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody like to ask a question or share something?
Okay. I'd like to ask a question, like, you're saying, okay, collaboration, etc. And we're all facilitators, we facilitate sessions. So did it ever happen or come as a surprise to any one of the authors that being facilitators, etc., when some of these issues came up, and maybe it was an emotional issue also, maybe our own facilitation skills went out of the window, or were they very alive?
Thank you for that question. And yeah, so would you like anybody particular to answer, or is it open for any of the?
Yeah, it's an
authors?
open question.
Yeah.
It's an open question, but I'd love to hear how do y'all work through it? What happened?
I mean,
Yeah.
we're very happy that the book is in the form that it is in right now. Finally, so we're at various spaces, we were consistently challenged by our own capabilities, and we consistently made, at least for me, consistently made present to our own horizons of what we can possibly accomplish consistently. But as much as there were limitations, there was also support. There were people who were if not by overt coming up and saying we can do it, but by just sheer personal action and by just sheer personal example, as Michael, Marlon, they just took it on and went on with it. That personal action in itself was extremely energizing, and so I knew for myself that how are we going to even manage this? And then you saw these folks doing these things, and then you realize maybe I should try some more. So that was the process by which we all came out. I think the book has emerged, and I think in more ways than one, each facilitator has also emerged from a version of ourselves from the past. I think that's important. I think that could not have come up if we were not tested about our own styles and our own limitations, consistently tested and proven that when we were not up to the mark and we had to go up a little bit more. I think that's the importance of for us to come up with this and put it together.
Yeah. Thank you.
And just to make one comment on that, what you're saying, Kavi, I think what also helped us is that, when we were having different opinions, we were always reminding ourselves that the person who has a different opinion has a positive intent. It's not because they want to do something bad or use their power in any way. It was always because it was a positive intent of getting the best possible book on facilitation out to the community. And that, I think, helps a lot if you can remind yourself of that. And I think this team were quite good actually at doing that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kavi and Malin, for responding.
Always, just why on that note, always very difficult to do that sitting at different time zones, waking up in the middle of the night and saying, yes, we have positive intent to see stuff at times. But yes, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened.
It seems Jory has, Jory, you have a question?
Jory,
yeah, this is Jory from Taiwan. I don't have a question. I just have acknowledgement and then my respect to Kimberly and all the authors for putting this great work. And I had the honor to be asked by Kimberly to write a little paragraph as an endorsement. When I did that, I did not realize the content, the richness, and all this of this collaborative work. So my deepest respect to all of you. And I was lucky to be in the group with Kavi and Stephen, because I was thinking, oh, if I get into this group, then I can really hear their more personal stories. So I was very happy that I heard about how they did their interesting, impressive interview, and also how they themselves live a facilitative life. I share with them that when I started out facilitation, my mentor, ICA Dick West, the first sentence he said is, facilitation is the way of life. of living. And I think it all came back to the circles. I feel very fortunate to be in this community. Thank you all. That's my acknowledgement. Yeah. And thank you, IAF Global, for conducting this event.
Thank you so much, Jory, for your acknowledgement. I'm sure it adds a lot of, a lot of motivation and support for everybody here, including the authors as well as the community. Okay, whom haven't we heard from? Anastasia, do you want to say something, dear?
Sure. Always energizing infusion. Here it comes. The question for Chitra, though, this is how we'll kind of hope it to wrap up in a way. Chitra, so as the graphic facilitator, you have the last word to consign everything with the graphic. So once many readers and viewers will look at your drawing, they will not look and they will not read the chapters at all. So it's going to be an essence for them. So yeah, majority of the people, because we are living in a busy world. So as a graphic facilitator, when you convey the essence of the entire chapter, and you feel this responsibility to get it right, how did it feel for you right now when you look back and you've read all the chapters? Do you think you captured the essence at its best as you could as a graphic facilitator?
Very difficult question, Anastasia. I'm just going off the video so that I don't get cut midway. Okay, so I felt the first time around, I think as a graphic recorder, it's like sometimes our senses are tuned to catch the first, like we're almost like the fishing net. We're there to catch the most prominent messages, right? So we're trained or tuned to get that, but there is a very clear and present risk there that it could be our convenience, our habit, and our biases, which is also why we are drawn to certain words and certain concepts. And the process in this in this whole book was to be in touch with the author, so it was never going completely astray. And I feel now, I mean, when I look back, it's one of those everyday moments, like did you perform your best today? And you'd be like, yeah, this is the best I could manage today, but is it the best in the whole world? Maybe not. So I think the same thing applies when I look back at that time in the middle of things that we were. I feel whatever, I mean, and that is the core essence of facilitation. Like whatever needs to come does come, and that is what stays, and it is what was meant to be. Not sounding very fatalistic, but it's also like a probabilistic solution that it is what it was, as a best. So if you ask me to redo it, I feel I'm sure I'll come up with another different layout, but I feel whatever came out was already kind of, it fit the context. It just fit. Unless the content changes, I'm sure I'll be influenced by what I've made already. So that's a very clear, I would say, human weakness or limitation. But yeah, I think especially with the second chapter, like the first chapter, it kind of like with Michael and Martin, the idea was something that I've lived through, like also coming in from the communication side, so I could instantly connect with, and it was, I was surprised that in the first impression was also something that was endorsed by both Michael and Martin, and it was a matter of just refining a few details. With the second chapter with Kavi and Stephen, I must confess here, Kavi and Stephen, I'm still trying to find my facilitator way of life, and it is a very complex subject matter when you're trying to read it as an outsider versus trying to internalize that whole idea of whatever, I mean, all of those points. So I mean, I got cut short the last time, but the real core of the message is that comfort within was very difficult for me to arrive at, and it took Stephen's coaching and a little bit of facilitation to get that mindset of trying to get it right. He said, just absorb the context and let it flow, and it took me some while to get there. because this was a very different context. And even now to this day, I think I'm trying to, whenever I get lost or I get super fidgety, I kind of come back to that. What is that comfort within? And I feel somewhere I did probably strike the right note, at least for, if I look at myself as a reader, I feel that is the real core and the crux of this whole practice, this whole vocation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chitra. I am happy that you were able to complete what you wanted to say this time. Previously you got cut off because of your technical issues. Okay, I know we have overshot the time by about 6 minutes so far. So unless anybody has any burning question running in their mind, we are ready to call it a day. So what does the group feel? Any burning question? Super. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for being part of this conversation. Thank you to all the authors, Chitra, everybody, for being here at whatever, from all over the world at different time zones. Really, really appreciate and grateful for all your support and your contributions. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great to see you guys.
Thank you, Shalaka, for putting this together.
Thank
So
you.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Stephen, for letting me in. Bye.
Bye,
Bye-bye. Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.